All right, we need to talk about a really difficult and honestly a widely misunderstood subject: parental alienation. And let's be clear from the get go, this is not about parents disagreeing or the usual bumps in the road after a separation. No, we're talking about a deliberate pattern of behavior, a campaign, really, by one parent that inflicts a deep, invisible wound on a child. And it's a wound that experts are now identifying as a serious form of developmental trauma. So, to really get our heads around this, we're going to look at what it is, how it actually impacts a child's brain, and most importantly, what the path to healing can look like. So, here's our roadmap. First, we'll nail down a clear definition of parental alienation so we know exactly what we're discussing. Then, we're going to dive into the hidden world of a child's brain under this kind of threat. From there, you'll see how that constant emotional stress becomes a physical reality, how the body literally keeps the score. And that's going to help us reframe this whole issue for what it is: a form of abuse. And we'll wrap up by looking at the vital pathways to recovery and healing. Okay, so let's start at square one. What are we really talking about when we use this term parental alienation? The whole idea really hinges on those two words: unjustified rejection. This is the absolute key that separates parental alienation from something called estrangement. You see, a child might pull away from a parent for a very good reason. Maybe that parent was abusive or neglectful. That's estrangement. Parental alienation is totally different. It's when that rejection is manufactured. It's built on manipulation, and it has no real basis in the child's own experience with the parent they're rejecting. And you can see this direct cause and effect relationship right here. On the one side, you have the tactics. An alienating parent might constantly rewrite history, painting the other parent as some kind of monster. And what's the result? Well, the child starts giving these really weak or bizarre reasons for being angry. Or maybe the alienating parent encourages a new step-parent to be called mom or dad. That's a tactic designed to directly cause the child to reject their actual parent. This stuff doesn't happen by accident. It is a campaign of psychological manipulation, plain and simple. Now, these behaviors we see on the outside, they're really just the tip of the iceberg. To truly grasp the damage being done, we have to go deeper, inside the child's brain. Because this isn't just about hurt feelings. We're talking about something that affects the fundamental wiring of the brain as it develops. You have to understand, for a little kid, the bond with a parent is, well, it's everything. It's their anchor, their safe harbor in the world. When that bond is attacked and systematically severed, the child's brain doesn't just register it as a family problem. Oh no, it registers it as a full-blown life or death survival threat. The deepest, most primitive parts of the brain start screaming danger. So, to make sense of this, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk gives us this brilliant analogy. Think of the emotional part of your brain, the amygdala, as a smoke detector. Its only job is to sense trouble and scream fire. It doesn't think, it just reacts. Then you have the rational part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex. Think of that as the watchtower. It can look at the situation calmly and say, hey, relax, it's not a real fire, we just burned the toast. In a healthy brain, these two work together perfectly. But here's the problem. In the middle of parental alienation, that smoke detector, that alarm bell, is going off constantly. The child is living in a state of perpetual high alert. And as Dr. van der Kolk says right here, when that alarm keeps ringing and ringing, no amount of logic from the watchtower can shut it off. The entire system is hijacked. The brain gets stuck in survival mode. And this constant state of alarm, it's not just a mental thing. It sinks deep into our biology. It becomes physically embedded in the body. The trauma literally rewires how a person experiences the world, not just in their mind, but in their gut, in their muscles, in their very soul. One of the most common responses to this is just numbing out. When the feelings of fear and loss are just too much to handle, the body's survival instinct can kick in and just flip a switch, shutting them down. It's a coping mechanism, but it leaves the person feeling totally disconnected, like they're watching their own life from behind a glass wall, unable to feel real joy or connection. You know the phrase, speechless with terror? Well, it turns out that's not a metaphor. It is a literal neurological fact. Brain scans actually show that when someone is reliving a traumatic memory, Broca's area, a key part of the brain for speech, can just go offline. It shuts down. The experience is so overwhelming that the part of you that makes words just isn't available. That's why we say all trauma is, at its core, pre-verbal. Trauma also steals one of our most essential human tools, our imagination. And I don't just mean for daydreaming. Imagination is what lets us believe in a better future, what gives us hope, what allows us to problem solve. But for someone stuck in a trauma loop, the mind loses that flexibility. It's just stuck replaying the past over and over, which robs them of the variability to picture a future where they can be happy and safe. And the consequences of being trapped in this state are absolutely devastating. Look at this number, 30%. In one study of adults who went through parental alienation as kids, nearly 1/3 of them reported having suicidal thoughts. This isn't just about being sad, this is a life and death crisis. So, when you start putting all these pieces of the puzzle together, the neurological impact, the way the body holds on to the trauma, it just forces you to see parental alienation in a completely different light. Which brings us to the most important question of all. When you look at all this evidence, can you really call this a simple dispute between parents? Or are you looking at a pattern of behavior that causes such profound, lasting harm that it has to be called what it is, a severe form of child abuse? Take a look at this list. This is the clinical profile for developmental trauma, the kind of trauma that happens during those critical years of childhood. You see things like emotional dysregulation, problems with identity, feeling unsafe in your own body. Does that sound familiar? It should. It's almost a perfect match for the consequences of parental alienation we've been talking about. And if you need to understand the long-term stakes, look no further than the groundbreaking Adverse Childhood Experiences study, the ACE study. What they found is just mind-blowing. A child who has multiple adverse experiences, like the emotional abuse and parental alienation, is 4,600% more likely to become an IV drug user later in life than a child with zero trauma. 4,600%. The stakes just could not be higher. Okay, I know all of this is incredibly heavy, but the story does not have to end there. As devastating as this all is, there is absolutely hope. The same science that shows us the damage also shines a light on the pathways to healing. So let's finish up by looking at what that recovery process involves. Healing from traumas is not about forgetting. It's about integrating what happened from a new place of safety. So step 1, the absolute foundation, is establishing safety, both physical and emotional. Step 2 is reconnecting with your own body. Because trauma makes you feel unsafe in your own skin, things like mindfulness or yoga can help you learn to feel at home in your body again. Third, you have to find your voice to be able to name what happened. And finally, reconnecting with other people in safe, supportive ways. And in the end, it all comes down to this one profound truth. The wound of trauma is a wound of disconnection. Therefore, it can only truly be healed through connection. The path forward is through relationships, with friends, with family, with a good therapist, that provide that deep sense of safety you need to finally face the past and begin to heal that unseen wound.